time. So hello, friends. Welcome. Welcome back to Funding Fridays. I am the Funding Fridays webinar series. I am Effie McLaughlin. I'm the Director of Grants and Research Programs in the CUNY Office of Research, where I have worked for about 10 years now, and I direct many of the internal funding programs and most of the research development initiatives and programs from within the Office of Research, of which Funding Fridays is the jewel in the crown of our research development efforts. So today we are having a conversation about public interest technology in New York City. What you are looking at now is this is our website. This is the Pitt at CUNY website. It is brand new. We are just launching this today. You were all seeing a brand new, shiny new website that Katie and I are very proud of. But today we're having a conversation with our partners in the Public Interest Technology University Network, with Mona Sloan and Matt Statler, who are from NYU. And I'm going to do a little bit of a longer introduction of them in a bit. And Katie Comiskey, from the College of Staten Island, who directs the Public Interest Technology program at the College of Staten Island. So we're hoping that for those of you who have attended our Funding Fridays webinars in the past, we're hoping this will be we're going to have a little bit of a smaller group. We're hoping it'll be a little bit more interactive. We want to engage you in discussion. So we want to engage you all in a conversation about digital technologies and social justice. So the Funding Fridays, just to say a little bit about the webinar series. So in partnership with the Office of Library Services in the central office, and also the Research Foundation, RF CUNY's Office of Award Pre-Proposal Support, we developed this webinar series. And the goal is to create a living resource for research development and professional development for researchers at all levels across the City University of New York. And our 21-22 Funding Fridays calendar is now completely finalized and up on our website. I don't know, Rumi, if you want to throw our website link in the chat. Most of you have probably seen it. And I think we have a great lineup this year. At the end of this month, we're celebrating Open Access Week with our scholarly communications librarian, Megan Wacha. We've received a lot of inquiries in our office about the ins and outs of open access publishing. So if you guys have any interest in open access publishing, please attend that. And we also have a bunch of other webinars on pursuing Fulbright Awards, on the scholarly uses of Wikipedia, on arts and performing arts and creative arts funding opportunities. So please do check out the Funding Fridays webinar series. So I should say in advance that all of these webinars are recorded and made available on the Office of Research website. So if any of you are uncomfortable with sharing your image of your voice, please keep your cameras and your microphones off. But we also encourage all of you to provide feedback on this webinar and certainly make suggestions for future topics you'd like us to address, because I am very responsive. And pretty much our entire lineup this year was a response to suggestions that faculty and administrators and staff made last year in terms of topics they'd like us to address in this professional development webinar series. So that said, so a little bit of housekeeping. The presentation is going to run for about an hour. Our speakers have developed some topics for discussion, as I had mentioned, so we're going to hope to engage you in some conversation. Please type, you're welcome to type. Remy Dar, my colleague from the Office of Research, who's also on this call, are going to be monitoring the chat as we go along. So please feel free to type any questions you have in the chat as we go along. Remy and I will look at that. We will make every effort to get all of your questions and comments. And then, as I had mentioned, we also plan to leave ample time at the end of the presentation to answer all your questions and sort of engage you in points of discussion. So very quickly, I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now so you get a bigger version of our speakers today. So I just want to introduce you to, is Mona on the call, Matt, yet?
I don't think so.
Okay. So I'll introduce Matt Statler. So Matt Statler is our colleague here from New York University. So Matt is a clinical assistant professor of management and organizations in the NYU Stern School of Business. He serves as the Richmond Family Director of Business Ethics and Social Impact Programming for Stern's Undergraduate College. As we were talking earlier, much of Dr. Statler's research focuses on the ethics of crisis management, and he also works with our other speaker today, who's going to be a little bit late joining us, Mona Sloan. They organize NYU's Public Interest Technology Initiative together. So Mona, who's going to be joining us, is a sociologist working on inequality in the context of AI design and policy. She's a fellow with NYU's Institute for Public Knowledge. She is also an adjunct professor in the Department of Technology, Culture, and Society at NYU's Tandon School of Engineering. And she's a senior research scientist at NYU Center for Responsible AI. So as you can see, they're both the perfect people to be talking about public interest technology today. And last but not least, our star public interest tech scholar at CUNY is Katie Komisky, who's also going to be speaking today and sharing some of the comments of her students. She's a professor in the psychology department and the Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies program at CSI. Her research focuses on the effective dimensions of mobile media and mobile communication, and she founded and directs the Public Interest Technology program at CSI St. George, which you can find a link to on our new Pitt at CUNY site. So please, we also have a few other special guests today, which I might introduce as we come along. One of our colleagues, Arbor Rusi, who works with the New York City Regional Innovation Node, the I-Corps program, has joined us today to maybe talk about Pitt and entrepreneurship. But please, Matt, take it away.
Sure. Thanks, Effie and Remy, for hosting, Katie for the dialogue, which we've already initiated in preparation for this session, and which I look forward to continuing with you and everyone else on the webinar in this Zoom meeting here today. It's a pleasure to be here and to meet you all. My colleague Mona will be joining us shortly. We've got some other games we're playing in parallel, so it goes. She had to intro that and will be with us momentarily. But yes, my name is Matt. I am a philosopher, did my PhD in philosophy these many long years ago at Vanderbilt University. Couldn't find a job as a philosopher, so ended up as a strategy consultant and .com entrepreneur, later a disaster sort of researcher, planner. And I've been lucky to have this job at NYU in the business school for the last 13 years as the director of business ethics and social impact programming, NYU Stern. It's a 4-year undergraduate bachelor's degree they apply to and arrive at NYU thinking they want to study business, intending to study business. And each of those 4 years, there is a required course. There's something called a social impact core curriculum, 4-course required core curriculum that focuses on social impact and ethics. Those classes are small scale seminars. So it's 30 sections of the freshman course and 30 sections of the senior, it's a big operation. There's a lot of us doing that. I say that just to sort of introduce myself, but also to say that it's in the context of those required courses that the issues which we hear today will frame in terms of public interest technology have basically become increasingly salient over the years that I've been there. We weren't talking about technology so much 13 or 10 or even 5 years ago now. And I think that's reflective of a broader cultural awareness that these digital tools that we use are not ethically neutral. They do impact society, yes, in some positive ways, but also in some ways that merit critical reflection and even activism, I would say. So it's in that context, again, I sort of bring us all sort of to the moment to say, when we're talking about public interest technology in general, that's a way of talking about tech that serves the public good. We could be talking about tech in government. We could be talking about technology that is used and wielded by people seated in state, local, federal governmental positions. We could be talking about, again, tech in the sort of nonprofit sector in the context of public service. We could also, again, I'm coming to you from a business school, we could be talking about technology deployed by, innovated by, deployed by businesses in ways, again, that yes, make money and produce, yield or result in productivity or efficiency, but also create sort of positive externalities, benefits to society. Now, so that's sort of how we generally will, I think, orient. And Katie, if you've got anything else you want to add as I do this, what I want to do is say too, from my perspective, and there's Mona. Welcome, Mona, my colleague and co-PI, principal investigator on this grant. Mona, I've just sort of talked us into public interest technology, and I'm about to share my screen. So I'll go a few levels in and then hand the word, Mona, to you as we sort of present and describe what an event that we're running in just a few weeks, 2 weeks from now, October 14th and 15th, is something called A Better Tech. So I'll share my screen and hopefully you'll be able to see that. We at NYU are alongside you at CUNY as being members of this PIT-UN, a truly unfortunate acronym that nevertheless serves as the umbrella under which we gather together, not just the two of us, but there are 43 universities in this public interest technology university network. And in that network, we as NYU have joined that network in part through and this is our version of the website, I think, Effie, that you showed at the front. This is our NYU Alliance for Public Interest Technology. And this is our attempt to leverage all of the different things that are being done. Yes, in the engineering school at Tandon, yes, in the business school at Stern, also in the law school, also in the College of Arts and Sciences, also in the School of Public Service, et cetera, et cetera. A cross-university alliance that engages in a variety of projects, one of which is then what we are here to talk about today. It's called A Better Tech. It's a 2-day convention and career fair that has been funded. It's a project that's been funded by the New America Foundation and through the Provost's office at the NYU Alliance. And it's coming right up. Mona, are you in a position to sort of talk through what we're doing? You've gone dark. Maybe she stepped away. I'll continue.
I
no,
needed,
you're back.
Fuel.
Caffeine. I can scroll while you talk, Mona, if you like. This
Sure.
Public Interest Technology and Career Fair.
let's
We've
do it.
introduced you as sociologist already. Maybe a word or two about what you're up to before we get into this, though, as we
Great.
welcome you.
Of course. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us. It's always a pleasure to meet new folks and be in the same space with Katie and her team, and talk about A Better Tech. I'm Mona Sloan, sociologist. I work on design, inequality, and technology broadly with a number of things at NYU. Excuse me, of course, this is going to happen now. Together with Matt, am the principal investigator for A Better Tech, as Matt has said. So A Better Tech is chiefly supported also through Stern and Tandon, the business school and engineering schools. Matt's based at Stern, I'm at Tandon. And that's really where we're coming at the event. Very much also looking to activate business students as well as engineering students who are very interested in these things. Okay. A Better Tech, Public Interest Technology Convention and Career Fair, as the name says, has two parts. We have a convention part and we have a career fair part. And what we're trying to do is really actively shape and collaboratively shape the space of public interest technology in the US. And we have a wonderful spread of events that we were fortunate enough to put together based on a content solicitation that we ran over the last few weeks. So we invited experts, advocacy groups, communities, anybody who's interested in public interest technology or does stuff in public interest technology. And we're very broadly defining public interest technology here. Matt, if you could scroll down to our definition for a sec. excuse me, we have a very broad definition. I think it's further down, isn't it?
There it is.
Yeah, a very broad definition of public interest technology, because we want to include public interest technology work that is perhaps done outside of government. And we want to make sure that public interest technology is not just understood as GovTech, but is understood as working on and with technology that is in the public interest, that can be in the industry, that can be in education, that can be in advocacy. It can be in many different kind of verticals and capacities in areas of interest and expertise. And so what we're trying to do with the convention part of A Better Tech is activate that space through workshops, through panels, which we call dialogues, through book talks. That's unfortunately why I was late. We were recording a bunch of book talks, curated a list of very current books that deal with the question, what is public interest technology? We have an ideas session, which is a terrific series of TED Talk style talks where folks will present ideas or projects or interventions in the space of public interest technology, ranging from very technical questions such as how do I deal with biased data that comes from the public domain when I build a product, to engaging historically marginalized communities, to questions how do I build a career in public interest tech through building career in advocacy or philanthropy. We have questions around product design, all sorts of things that are happening in the idea session. We also have wonderful keynotes, and I'm extremely excited to announce if we have a keynote that will be given by Dr. Ruman Chaudhary, who's heading up the new kind of responsible tech team at Twitter. We have a keynote roundtable that is on building careers in critical tech journalism, which is moderated by Vivian Schiller, who heads up the tech policy work at Aspen Institute, and features Kari Johnson, Demon Barris, and Karen Howe, who are very well-known and wonderful critical tech journalists. We'll talk about their careers. We'll have a terrific panel on venture capital and responsible tech entrepreneurship. Is a conversation between Freda Kapper-Klein, Alison Scott, who heads the Kapper Center, and Irma Algun, who is a serial responsible tech entrepreneur. And we have a bunch of others that we are still to announce, so stay tuned on that. So that's kind of the convention part. What we also have is the career fair part, which will mostly happen on the second day, where students can sign up to sessions with recruiters, which will include recruiters from gov institutions or agencies, as well as industry. And that will happen through Handshake, which is the platform you are probably familiar with, where students can book one-on-one sessions or group sessions with recruiters. And that is kind of, the more traditional career fair part that we have. We also have a hackathon where students can work on concrete problems related to public interest tech, which will run throughout the 2 days. It's going to be kicked off on the first day, and we'll conclude that on the second day, which is run by our partner, or one of our partners, Democracy Lab and Code for America Brigade Network. That's kind of what we're up to with A Better Tech. As you can see, we are doing our best to activate the space in different ways and from different angles and directions, and are really excited about what we were able to put together. I will also say that we are very fortunate in that we have a terrific team that's constantly on fire in a good way. And we are, that's them. And we've grown since, or are growing with volunteers, and are looking forward to bringing that energy into the space, because it's already, it's already an energetic space anyway. And we really hope that we'll see all of you there. I don't know if that was kind of a good.
Mona, the only thing that I would punctuate your overview with is the very simple but very important message. It's all free. Anyone and everyone is welcome to tune in, participate, and the way to do that is through this website. We've set this up as kind of the portal. We've yet to kind of post the links to all of it's fully virtual, I should say. None of this, it's happening, online. So the dialogues and the workshops, there'll be Zoom links and Eventbrite invitations, so you can, they're not yet posted on the website because we're trying to finalize the schedule, I think, if not today, then early next week. But this is the way that any of you in this Zoom meeting and any of your students or colleagues or friends or collaborators, go to the website, sign up for the newsletter. We've got, I think, 700 people getting this newsletter already, and it's snowballing even in these days and weeks. That's how we're going to be connecting with everybody who wants to participate. Anybody who wants to participate is more than welcome to participate. Again, this itself is a service to the field of public interest technology. So we're trying to put up a big tent that everyone can gather under. There's going to be something for everybody. So yeah, that's I think what I would say, stopping to share my screen and back to the view. If there are any questions about this now or through the proceedings, thanks Mona for putting the link in the chat. I'll monitor the chat as well. But maybe that's enough from us for now. Effie, Katie, something we've missed, something you wanted us to make sure to cover? There's a hand up from, I'll mispronounce the name perhaps, Aradhana Kumari.
Yeah, Aradhana. I'm sorry.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
So from the presentation, I see that there is something about technology. Okay, I'm not very good in technology and I'm a math professor. I'm here in this meeting. What is your goal, or what should be my goal? I mean, what should I get out of this? One thing I got, okay, make your student interested to join this. There's some funding from the government, or I don't know, whatever those funding you introduce. What else can I get from here, or what else should I be, focusing in this? Me
Today,
as an instructor.
In
Yes.
this meeting or in
Right.
the event to come 2 weeks from now?
From today.
Today. Well, I would say it sounds like in the first instance, you can become aware of what's going on in CUNY and at NYU and across, indeed, the other 41 universities, each of which is organizing in its own idiosyncratic way around this problem. This is happening. Strategists, policymakers, tech people, engineers, perhaps mathematicians gathering around a shared interest in leveraging the power of technology in the service of the public interest. So that's, I think, the first thing is just to be aware that that's going on, and that we here are presenting our piece of the puzzle, but it's happening across the country, and I would hope indeed across the world. Mona, something else that you think Aradhana and others might want to derive from this session and or the event to come?
I'm probably off script here, but I will say that a big hope, a hope that I have personally is that folks are gonna have fun with this. We're designing this with joy in mind, and hoping that people are just, are gonna enjoy what they're doing and just don't feel like they are, attending a very scripted event or a conference, or that they have to do this, that, or the other, but that they can feel that they can explore. And that is for everyone. That's not just for students, obviously, because they're interested in probably thinking about developing careers in public interest technology or related to that, but also researchers, faculty, will have recruiters who will be there, who will try to wrap their head around what's going on in the research field. So, and hopefully it will be fun. Like that's kind of what I would add.
I guess I would say, I mean, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, Matt and Mona, but normally the focus of these Funding Friday webinars is much more sort of on research development and grant writing and things. And I think maybe partly where Dr. Kumari's question is coming from is she wants to know sort of what, how does CUNY fit into the bigger public interest technology picture? And Matt, you touched on that a little bit when you said this is an initiative that was, sort of organized by New America. But I guess maybe Katie, you could speak to, because it would be nice to sort of, because as you said, I mean, so the Public Interest Technology University Network, as Matt mentioned, is a network of, is it 41 or 43? I can't remember, but 41 universities across the nation that are all have researchers and students and departments and programs that are thinking about these questions. And so part of the reason why we wanted to have a webinar like this is to sort of bring you into the conversation. And I mean, and if we have time, Matt and Mona can talk about their own research a little bit in this space. And I think Katie's going to talk about her research in this space. So it's partly just to bring you into the conversation about what's going on in the public interest technology scholarship and sort of practical activities world. I mean, there are, if you look at our website, there are funding opportunities, which you might have missed before. There is a challenge grant competition that the Public Interest Tech University Network runs every year. So there are funding opportunities within this space specifically. But I mean, I think sort of the point of this workshop, and Katie, please expand on this as well, is more about just sort of trying to make you aware, and also by extension, your students aware of what's going on and the sort of work that's being done. So, Katie.
So, yeah, I think this is an interesting challenge because we are literally on the forefront of building a new interdisciplinary field, right? So if you haven't heard about this thing called public interest technology, it's because we're making it happen. Like we're defining it. These events like what we're doing today, we're field building. And when we are field building, we hope that this will translate into a multitude of opportunities for fundings that could expand our work and expand the impact of what we're doing. We've been, all those of us on the screen have been generously funded through New America, which is a conglomeration of nonprofits, philanthropic arms of corporates, mainly led by the Ford Foundation. And I have to give a shout out to some of the people that are in the room. So being a part of this, has really changed my life and felt natural for me in terms of what my area of interest is, my research expertise, which is, as Effie mentioned, my research has focused on the role that mobile communication has played in impacting face-to-face interactions, and most recently in discussing how it impacts situational awareness in crisis situations, as well as how people may or may not use mobile media to ameliorate grief and loss experiences. And so Dan McCluskey, who's in the room with us today, when he was at CUNY Central and Office of Research, was really helped us launch this and get this started at CUNY. And we had a convening to kind of bring people together who may not realize that they share something, but sort of looking, as Matt was pointing out, and Mona too, looking at this sort of intersection between how we engage with technology and really taking a critical focus, like where do we locate our critical perspectives on tech? If it's solely from a business perspective, that usually doesn't enter that way. In traditional pathways into computer science, that doesn't often involve social science. And so it's a way to kind of create this really dynamic space. They were very intentional in using the term public interest in terms of calling it public interest technology, because in a lot of ways, we wanted to mirror the development of this field alongside how public interest law was developed, in terms of that for a long time, people could become legal scholars and study law and practice law without really having a deeper understanding of how we could use legal tools to improve people's lives and to advance the public good. In these times where the division between private and public is like very hard to discern. Just even holding on to the word public, I think, is really critically important, and even holding on to a notion of a public good, as we've seen it, becomes embattled when we're living within the context of a global pandemic. But then, just sort of larger issues around ethics and integrity and social responsibility and accountability, and what leadership is, and regulation, like who has the right to say what we can and cannot do, with tools that we're given. These are all these critical, what I would come to frame as public interest questions. More locally, my project is housed at the College of Staten Island, and I also have Crystal Montalvo in the room here that I want to give a shout out to, who runs our Office of Community Education Engagement. And our project is a little different than a lot of projects across the network. And that's been a really strength, I think, of our university network, is that we're really spanning a lot of different approaches, whether they be through basic research, through applied work, through more of a career development aspect, a lot focused on graduate studies and graduate students, and my work is really focused on building pipelines, diverse tech pipelines of tech talent into college, right? And so we do active recruiting from the high schools. And so over the last 2 years, I've built intentional learning community of students who may not be drawn to study computer science, but may, as Matt was pointing out, have cultivated some important skills. And again, these students are leading me. And I think Mona, I really appreciate your call to joy and your call to participatory nature, and and Matt, like you talking about the event being free. I mean, we've also embraced the idea that open educational resources are a critical component to this, because access and equity and inclusiveness is really at the heart of this, right? That we really want to break down the barriers and walls of people's access to technology and people's access to knowledge, and to really understanding the impacts of tech on society. And so our students are leading the way in terms of helping us define what PIT is, as well as us having a real deep understanding that for us to cultivate this in the future generations of what may evolve as public interest technologists. And we see people in public sphere now identifying as public interest technologists. In fact, in the Biden administration, they appointed someone who is named as a public interest technologist in the presidential administration. We see that there's a future here, and that it's deeply participatory, and that we have to shift from how we traditionally see trainings and pedagogy and college preparedness and all of these kinds of things, to embrace this more hands-on, flexible, kind of ways of seeing that technology is a part of everything that we do. And that even though as we move into technological advances, and Mona, maybe you can speak to this too, they'll fall more and more into the background, and those technologies may not even need us to function in that way. I think we have to learn how to be more able to, discern impact and be critical thinkers about all of this. So we kind of plan to have a little bit more of an engaging conversation, and I wanted to share with you a video that one of my students made to kind of introduce you to what we've been doing at CSI, and to kind of get our discussion started with posing a question to the panel. As I said, we are starting students right from high school into college. And so this student is in her second year in our program, and wants to share a little bit about her experience and how she has come to understand what public interest technology is. So Effie, is that okay that I play this video now? Okay. So, there we go.
Hi, my name is Andrea Guifarro, and I am a sophomore at the College of Staten Island. I attended Newdorp High School in pursuit of becoming a lawyer, essentially. However, I decided that it was not for me. And during this time, the protest about George Floyd's death was happening, and that's when I received a phone call to be part of the PIT program. At first, I wasn't sure, but once we did the beginning workshops, it really hooked me in. I was really excited to do the workshops and learn more about what this program is about and how my peers were activists and they wanted to involve technology to provide a better community for us. I also wanted to be a cop at the beginning of my first year, but as the year went along, I really made the realization that PIT is the right thing for me. I'm now entering my second year in the program, and what makes our program unique is that we are a community and we rely on each other. What I am learning about in the tech field is all about network and that deals with all kinds of relationships and bonding and building peer networks that are giving us important skills that I can use to adapt into any work environment. I see myself as a public interest technologist, using technology and advocating for minorities and social justice for everyone, and of course, equality. I hope to spread it to whoever listens and to show them how important it is that our program is housed in the communities that we care about. I look forward to building a PIT project relating to ending police brutality on Staten Island. We have seen people record incidents in their phones, and we see how technology can interrupt abuses of power and can bring justice. Empowering citizens to hold authorities accountable through the use of technology that is easy to use is honestly one of my goals and one of my peers' goals as well. In ways that we can use technology to collect data to better inform communities and work together towards police reforms is what I hope to do as a public interest technologist. I am really excited about a Better Tech event and the career fair coming up. And so I would like to ask the panel a very important question. How do I convince my parents that I am majoring in something real that will help me build a successful career?
That was awesome.
So do you
So
want
that's Andrea. Yeah. And so, you know, this is her question, which I get a lot from a lot of students. How do we convince parents that this is a real thing and something that, you know, can help them on their career, you know, in careers?
I can jump in there.
Katie, can I ask a question? Sorry, let me just finish one question. Is CSI offering a course on PT, public interest technology, PIT? Yeah.
Well, we're developing, all of our students are taking courses that fulfill their gen ed requirements, and their faculty are teaching it from a PIT perspective. So they're integrating what you would typically have in a general ed course with knowledge related to their area of expertise as it relates to how they're defining PIT.
Got it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mona.
Thank you. So I'm just gonna share a very personal vignette. Just this morning, I got an email from a recruiter from a very big tech company asking me to touch base if I was interested in joining them to work on governance and technology and ethical issues at their company. And I never thought that would happen to me as a sociologist, as a qualitative sociologist who wrote a PhD about architects and worked on design and inequality in her career. So that's just to say that, not meaning to brag, just saying that the space around us is waking up to these issues. When we say it's dynamic, we don't just mean that it's dynamic within the institution because we get excited about it as educators. It's because it is changing and shifting, and we have an opportunity to really help build that space and build the space in dialogue with industry, in dialogue with policymakers, in dialogue with advocacy groups, in dialogue with higher education. And so this is where the jobs are going to be. And I would just tell my parents that.
Well, and talking from a business school perspective, I mentioned that these issues were not on our agenda or on our syllabi 10 years ago. And it's interesting for me to hear your response, Katie, to the question. Similarly, we have taken these issues and integrated them into existing syllabi. And why? Because, again, it's an undergraduate professional degree. Most of our business students don't go on and seek advanced degrees. This is their terminal degree, and it's the degree that positions them for careers. And increasingly, not only are they increasingly going to work for technology companies, where 10 years ago it was banks and accounting firms and consulting firms, but then of those, so they're working for Facebook and Amazon and Twitter and sort of brand name tech companies as business school graduates. But even those who are working for banks and consulting firms and accounting firms and marketing firms and all the rest of it, technology is increasingly a part of those jobs too. So everybody that comes out of the business school has to be at least conversant in, at least fluent in what's happening with technology. If they can additionally sort of co-major, or we call them concentrations, also study data science or computer science alongside their business degree, then they're positioning themselves to get basically jobs that pay well. We talk to parents all the time. Are they going to graduate and be able to pay off their student loans? Well, you bet. And for those who then additionally are capable not only of using those skills, either for tech firms or in other firms, businesses, those, in addition to that, they're able to think critically about how those skills can be used both for ill and for good, and sort of dedicate themselves to a life and a career of, I love the fact, I didn't expect the word joy to come up, Mona. I'm going to call that back. A life of joyful purpose, right? Not just going to work for the man or whatever, like just paying the rent, but additionally, seeking some sense of purpose in service to the public, in service to society, in service to a notion of justice. Whether, again, in a business or in a nonprofit or in a government agency. Those of the students who are, again, not only paying off their loans, but they're living like that, they're experiencing happiness and well-being. So I'm a parent, right? If my daughter, who's 15, not yet in college, came and said, well, I want to do something that will make me both employable and happy. Yes, please. I'll take that any day as a parent. So to Andrea, I think in that video, I can't wait to see her in this A Better Tech event. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people like her. That's our tagline. The next generation wants to see a better tech. And put her on the poster. That's a beautiful statement of what those students, what we see. And again, one more thought from me, and then I'll be quiet and listen to others. Part of this is also a signal, right? The fact that somebody like Andrea presents herself so compellingly. I thought I was going to go to law school. Then I thought I was going to be a cop. Now I'm thinking I'm going to do this, is also a signal to the tech companies that, again, maybe are developing and deploying technologies that are worthy of criticism, to say, if you want to recruit the top talent from from universities across this network, or again, thinking about non-traditional career pathways, if you want to have people who are working for your firm who are discriminating and can take any job, they're capable of doing what they want, and they want to choose something that's going to give them a life of joyful purpose, then you better well have something to say about that. You better well craft those jobs and those technologies so that there is a compelling story to be told, a narrative, a strategy that involves not just making money for the few founders or owners of the firm, but creating value for society as well. So I think she's got a great case to make to her parents.
That's great. Thank you so much. And thanks, Matt. And what I was learning from Andrea, as well as just thinking about as you were commenting, you both were commenting on the video, is this idea of, an enormous amount of flexibility where you can move through all different kinds of experiences and places, throughout the world, and kind of feel as though you're carrying a certain skill set that can be applied to all these different contexts, right? And so again, kind of moving us out of siloing ourselves around, access to certain knowledges, and having there be a real degree of openness without losing the capacity to really hone particular talents and particular skills. I see this in my students, or our students, in that, or our community, right? So even I'm like I don't want to use those same languages that sort of create this delineation of who's the experts in the room, because their lived experiences are, extremely valuable to what we're learning together. And so this idea of cultivating yourself, having a deep self-knowledge of what brings you joy, what you're passionate about, alongside honing skills to kind of develop you as the instrument, I think is kind of really interesting. And so I was just thinking also about, how do we right now at CUNY, I know we have opportunities for people to think about what they're developing in their research or in their classrooms, and how that might translate into industry, and sort of, again, breaking those barriers down between what we might see as more traditional academic pursuits and those that sort of are relegated to development in an industrial or technological context. And I was wondering if, I don't mean to put Arbor on the spot, but I was wondering, Arbor, if you might want to speak to the work that you're doing at CUNY, and how this sort of, maybe give a couple of your impressions about what you've been listening to so far.
Arbor.
Hey,
So
hi,
I
everyone.
Hi. So I briefly introduced Arbor earlier, but he is the entrepreneur in residence for the New York City Regional Innovation Node, and he's also the interim director of the CUNY iHub, which is the CUNY Business Incubator up in Harlem. So, and he's been having a very robust conversation with Katie for a couple months now about PIT and entrepreneurship. So, hi, Arbor, please.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. It's been so amazing to hear this. I mean, I sit on the side of economic development quite a bit more, and I'm lucky enough to see it sort of from all three dimensions, city, state, and federal. It's not hard to get behind something like PIT, right? From my perspective, I always want to hear sooner rather than later, sort of, I heard a lot of outcomes here, and I didn't hear many outputs, right? If you were to imagine this funnel, right, on the left of that funnel, there's your ecosystem. And if you were to tell me, the top 3 people you're trying to serve on that ecosystem, and I understand that in the middle is PIT. And then if you could tell me on the right side of that funnel, what type of pure output you get, I think it would help someone like me really clarify the message here. But that's just me personally, right? So that's my first impression of what I've heard. I think it's like I said, very, very easy to get behind this topic.
Can you just share with us a little bit more about what you mean by output? Can you give us an example of where you've seen this before? As you were saying,
For sure. So in my world, right, outputs, very simply, The basic ones that everyone uses in economic development are, number of companies created, for example, number of federal funding that's gotten to federal investment that's gotten to these companies, intramural and then extramural investment, amount of sales, right? Amount of employees hired, amount of employees retained. Those are all pure straight up outputs that I would have to sort of give even at the beginning of anything and probably at the end of everything, right? So that's what I meant. Does that make sense? I don't know
Yeah,
if that's just
so
general, but-
so something that feels a bit quantifiable or measurable. I mean, I think, again, and Matt and Mona, please weigh in on this. This is part of like we are in this mode of like generating outputs, let's say, right? So I think this is a new endeavor. We're very much in the startup kind of mode. And we're building capacity, like we're really building capacity. And that's why I was really excited for us to connect with, like, I'm considering like NYU regional partners, because, I'm on Staten Island, so you're very far away from, just kidding. But, like we're in like, we share a location of New York City, to partner up and to build capacity for helping us to kind of forge, what would those outputs look like, I think is a great, an interesting endeavor for us to maybe accomplish. I think a lot of us, especially in the social sciences, maybe don't, I mean, of course, we're scientists, we do often quantify things, but we don't necessarily think about how do we enumerate or measure impact, and that might be a challenge for us. And in a real way, not just in a numbers way, but just like in a real way.
Well, and I think part of the interesting opportunity here, it's also a challenge, is that in this evolving interdisciplinary field, the nature of those quantifiable outputs will be very different for different people, right? So and I'm going to do this, Mona, you keep me honest on this, but like take our keynote speakers, head of AI at Twitter. What's her output? Fewer racist tweets. Venture capitalists funding, entrepreneurs. What's their output? More new ventures by historically underrepresented minorities. A panel of journalists. What's their output? Greater public awareness of the opportunities as well as the danger associated with technology, and so on and so on and so on. So it's going to look different for the different people because of their disciplinary sort of footing. But I think that again, I think there's a whole range of it. Mona, where's your mind go on that? It's a great question, but I think it goes in a lot of different directions.
Question about what's the output?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Aria.
No, I was gonna quantify it. It starts with, who's the customer segment, right? And who's the top 3, and then what would be outputs for those people. I know it's a large ecosystem with a large, amount of folks that benefit from this, right? But I'm assuming the first one is students, but if you go a little further, I'm guessing there's others, and then, but
We actually have a comment in the chat from Dr. Bonsai, who teaches at Queens. He's computer science at Queens College and works in with us as part of the PIT initiative at CUNY. And he said, my understanding from Arbor's question is the metrics and KPIs that could help frame and drive the development of the PIT ecosystem and generating interest in PIT that could connect with others on not just output, but measurable outcomes that align with the stakeholders. And Arbor says, you're right. What's KPI? I'm sorry, I should know that.
key performance indicators.
Got it.
I mean, it's very, I mean, I think this is actually like a really interesting PIT challenge, because that we've encountered a lot in this network, which is that, we have people that are coming from computer science engaged in this practice, and those of us who are coming maybe from other areas, to find this sort of common language that we can use to ensure that we're, seeking value and seeing value, in all aspects of this, is is of course one of those challenges. And as Matt was saying, it's a challenge of interdisciplinarity, right, in and of itself, which I think is so key to our future and our survival, but I want to thank Arbor and Bond for like helping us sort of stay on this sort of idea that we definitely want to build into what we're doing ways in which we can demonstrate that what we're doing is having impact, right? And I think New America has been amazing in helping us to do that, just in terms of providing a platform for us to receive funding to support our projects, having the network kind of be in communication with each other, holding events that kind of bring people with shared interests, as Matt was saying, together to kind of work on certain issues. Just the whole notion of like a hackathon or something that we can have like a short amount of time together and maybe have like a significant impact is kind of exciting and often ignites these interesting opportunities for people. And I think that we have started to discuss how do we bring this to a larger frame outside of New America in terms of generating like additional funding opportunities and generating investment in critical ways. And so these are definitely data points that we're going to want to have as we move forward. So thanks, Arbor.
So I just want to say we actually have 2 minutes left in the webinar. I don't see any questions in the chat, but I would like to give anyone who's in the room, if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, please. We're a pretty small group. Please do that.
I just want to call attention. I'm sorry. I just want to call attention to Arbor was mentioning that he might have cut Mona off. So I'm sorry, Mona, if I cut you off. Also,
right.
If you were going to say something in addition to.
Yeah, I just briefly, I think it can turn out to be a fallacy to try to metricize everything. I can tell you from working closely and being in touch with people who do this kind of work in industry that folks who have PIT-related training, who have qualitative training, who have social research training or humanities training, or engineers who have some of that training are called in to make sense of what's going on. Of these wider like social processes that are unfolding, that are challenging, some of the technical tools that are developed that are used in the space. And that is kind of almost like a shadow workforce that comes in the form of independent consultants or folks who do UX design or who do product design or whatever it is. They are there. And that type of work, you can't necessarily put a number on that. That doesn't mean that it's not important, and also doesn't have economic importance or financial importance to corporations. So I just want to make clear that we don't, or at least in my book, that we shouldn't fall into the fallacy of thinking we need to squeeze everything into that sort of frame. I think that's what PIT is partially about.
Well, great. Well, it actually is just 1 o'clock. If there's no questions from the room, thank you so much, all of you, Matt and Mona and Arbor, off the cuff, joining the conversation, and Katie, of course, my partner in crime. So we will, this meeting is being recorded. It's going to be on our website. We will definitely continue to promote a better tech across CUNY. We also have CUNY is formally one of the partners of the hackathon with NYU and a better tech, that piece of the PIT programming there. So please, obviously, if you have any questions, you can contact Katie, you can contact me. I put up Katie's CSI Public Interest Tech Program link is up there. Also, our new PIT at CUNY website is up there. And please, thanks so much for attending, and thank you so much, Mona and Matt. Does anyone have any last words, or you're
October 15th, 14th, and 15th.
October 14th and 15th.
Register now, bettertech.net.
And tell your students, please. If you are students, you should come, but also tell your students.
Yes, thank you. And thanks so much, Matt and Mona. I'm really excited about the event. So thanks for doing it.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you. Bye.
Yes, graduate students can participate.
Yes, graduate students can participate.
Yes.
Everyone.